Imagine being just 20 years old, ranked 140th in the world, walking into one of the biggest tennis tournaments on the planet as a wild card, and instead of just surviving, systematically dismantling opponent after opponent with ruthless calm precision. No lucky breaks, no stumbles, just raw, undeniable, composed dominance. That is exactly what Alexandra Eala did at the 2025 Miami Open. Her incredible run in Florida didn't just shock the tennis world. It sent shockwaves through the entire global sports marketing industry, an industry utterly unprepared for the phenomenon unfolding before their eyes. Today, we dive deep into what's really happening around this young Filipina star because it transcends tennis. It transcends sponsorships. This is a generational event, and the powers that be in tennis are nervously scrambling to figure out what to do next. Let's start at the beginning, because context matters. Alexandra Eala was born in Quezon City in 2005 to a family that understood achievement. Her mother, a former national swimmer, was CFO of Globe Telecom. Her brother played college tennis in the U.S. The foundation was there: discipline, competitive spirit, and an environment that valued serious pursuit of excellence. But even with these advantages, no one could have directly predicted the path from that household in the Philippines to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. She moved there at just 12 years old, training alongside the world's elite juniors and absorbing a culture of excellence the academy is famed for. By that point, she was already fluent in Tagalog, English, and soon added Spanish, 3 languages before even becoming a teenager. Her junior career blossomed: Australian Open doubles champ in 2020, French Open doubles winner in 2021, and then an iconic milestone, 2022 U.S. Open girls singles champion, becoming the first Filipino ever to win a junior Grand Slam singles title. That kind of achievement generated headlines back home, celebrations, and maybe a sponsorship or two. What it didn't immediately produce, but what came later, was global brand chaos. Flash forward to March 2025. Alexandra enters the Miami Open as a wild card ranked 140th. The tournament expected local excitement, a flattering story, perhaps a Cinderella run. What they got was wholly unscripted. First, she won her opening match cleanly. Then she shocked everyone by dispatching Elena Ostapenko, a former French Open champion. Next was Madison Keys, a U.S. Open champion, also gone. Then the world number 1, Iga Swiatek, one of the greatest players of her generation, was sent packing in straight sets. 3 major champions, 3 straight sets, 1 wild card, 1 week. People kept refreshing the draw, double-taking the results. Alexandra's run ended in the semifinals, but by then, the story was written. No wild card in history had beaten 3 major champions in straight sets at a single WTA event. She became the first Filipino woman in the Open era to defeat a major champion at tour level, the first to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. These were seismic upsets. The world felt it. But here is where the story pivots, where it stops being just sports news and becomes something far bigger. Brands didn't just cautiously take meetings. They didn't follow the usual slow, bureaucratic sponsorship process. No, they sprinted. They moved with a velocity and chaos the WTA's old commercial machinery wasn't designed to handle. The WTA system is decades old. Agencies connect with management, pitches go through proper channels, and deals get officially announced once signed. It's clean, controlled, predictable. Alex didn't plan to upend that system. She simply became something the system had no category for. Globe Telecom had been with her since she was 8 years old, a prescient sponsorship decision and, in hindsight, a masterstroke. Babolat supplied her racket. Nike, already in her corner, surprised the industry by doing things it rarely does for a player outside the top 20. In July 2025, Nike gifted her a custom hair tie shaped like the Philippine national flower, the Sagita blossom. In August, Nike released a limited edition shirt inspired by her, designed by Filipino artist Georgina Camus, featuring the same flower draped over the Wimbledon grass. Pause and read that again. A limited edition, culturally significant Nike collection inspired by a player not yet inside the top 20. That was not just sponsorship. That was myth-making. Nike wasn't buying results. They were buying her narrative. They invested early, sensing a story far bigger than the sport's usual scope. The Bank of the Philippine Islands signed her to promote financial literacy and discipline. Local brands like Juice and Milo followed. All before she'd won a WTA title, all while she was still climbing the rankings. Industry insiders began whispering comparisons to Emma Raducanu, who exploded on the scene by winning the 2021 US Open as a qualifier. Her sudden rise triggered a flood of brand deals from Porsche, Dior, Tiffany, British Airways, and more. But while the surface comparison makes sense, the differences are huge. Raducanu's story was extraordinary, but largely Western-centered, anchored in Britain with mixed heritage that gave her a multicultural edge, yes, but a distinctly Western gravitational pull. Alex's story pulls in a radically different direction. The Philippines has 115 million people, plus more than 12 million in an incredibly widespread diaspora across the Middle East, North America, Europe, Japan, Australia, and beyond. These are communities deeply connected to home, following every match, many waking at 2 or 3 a.m. just to watch. This isn't just a fan base. It's a force of nature. Global brands know the difference. Sky Sports presenter Gigi Salmon said something that stopped many in their tracks, calling Alexandra possibly the biggest star in women's tennis right now in terms of pure crowd appeal. She also pointed out a telling fact. Two-time Grand Slam champion Coco Gauff publicly apologized to her own fans after a match because they were waiting on Alexandra's next match. Think about what that means. The WTA system was built around players like Gauff, Swiatek, Sabalenka, the established champions, the faces on posters, the rankings holders. When a top player like Gauff feels the need to acknowledge the crowd for a player ranked outside the top 30, something fundamental has shifted. And the tour knows it. But here's where things get complicated. Filipino sports journalist Dion Castro put it bluntly. Alex is already being treated like a multiple Grand Slam winner. The comparison wasn't to another tennis star, it was to Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao's impact in the Philippines was so colossal that crime rates reportedly dropped during his fights because the entire nation was watching. That is the level of national emotional gravity being invoked here. When a player generates that kind of power, the commercial world doesn't stroll toward her. It sprints. But sprinting breeds chaos. False stories proliferated online. Rumors of a huge Emirates Airlines deal. Bogus viral posts about a $45 million Wilson contract. Fact-checkers quickly put those to rest, but by then, the misinformation economy had taken on a life of its own. The fake news generated more buzz than official announcements for other players. Inside WTA headquarters, this phenomenon became a real concern not just about managing one player's commercial rise, but about managing a star whose cultural presence outpaces the tour's control. Because rankings no longer equal value. Titles no longer equal worth. The tour no longer fully controls its stars' narratives. Alex has, without apparent intention, decoupled all three. At the most recent ranking update, she was world number 45, down from a career-high 29 after a 2026 Miami round of 16 exit. Yet she remains the player brands chase at midnight. The player filling practice courts like concert venues. The player whose fans command the stage. No existing system was built for this. After a grueling 3-hour, 20-minute match in Miami this year, someone asked Alexandra how she prepares for physically bigger opponents. Her answer was both thoughtful and precise, describing different layers to her game, not relying solely on power, a continual process of building strength while leveraging her diverse arsenal. Different layers is the perfect phrase for who she is commercially, too. She's not just a logo to slap on advertising. She's an athlete trained at a world-class academy, speaking 3 languages fluently. She's a fashion icon who's graced covers of Vogue Philippines at 17 and Tatler Philippines at 19. She's a national symbol. She's a story far from finished. That's why the commercial frenzy makes sense in hindsight. Brands aren't buying her present. They're buying her future. They see a narrative destined to explode. Evidence is stacking. She's confirmed to play Linz, Stuttgart, and Madrid Opens in spring 2026, clay season. Clay rewards patience, tactical variety, and intelligence, all strengths Alexandra has displayed. Every tournament is a new chapter, a new moment where the world may pause to see a 20-year-old from Quezon City rewriting expectations. After Miami last year, she told the Indian Wells Open website that the tournament was just the beginning and described her growth, how tough matches and hard losses forged a more complete player. She said she knows she belongs. Watching her compete, it's hard to argue. When marketers and journalists speak of her, one word recurs: authentic. Authentic sounds simple and overused. But in modern sports marketing, where fans can smell manufactured sincerity instantly, authenticity is invaluable. And Alexandra has it in a way that cannot be faked. She's not playing a part or acting relatable. She's the real deal, and the world feels it. That explains why fans trail her even to practice. Why diasporas set alarms at dawn. Why Nike weaves mythology around her before she's won a WTA title. Authenticity can't be bought or manufactured. It either exists or it doesn't, and with Alexandra, it exists at a level that only emerges perhaps once a decade. Her career arc over roughly 12 months is genuinely historic, from ITF circuits, wild cards, WTA 1000 semifinals, to a career-high world ranking of 29, the highest ever for a Filipino woman, before even turning 21. And yet, by nearly every reasonable measure, this is only the beginning. Still near the beginning. That phrase should haunt brand executives at night. If this is what the beginning looks like, 300 brands chasing her, a cultural footprint spanning continents, a magnetic draw eclipsing Grand Slam champions, then the question of what comes next isn't just interesting for tennis. It's one of the biggest, most fascinating questions in global sports today. The WTA built a machine carefully designed over decades to manufacture, manage, and monetize the biggest stars in women's tennis. It worked until Alexandra Eala walked onto a Miami court, ranked 140th, and won matches no one expected. Something irreversible happened. The machine didn't break, but it began overflowing at the seams. Because what it saw wasn't a young player having a hot week. It was a cultural phenomenon, unfolding live. A young woman from the Philippines who turned decades-old sports commercial assumptions upside down simply by being exactly herself, completely, unapologetically, authentically herself. The brands chasing her aren't wrong. History tends to reward those who recognize something real before everyone else. And what's real here is a player already reshaping women's tennis far beyond the scoreboard, and she hasn't even reached her peak. When she wins her first Grand Slam, and judging by her trajectory, it's a question of when, not if, that narrative will explode from hundreds of brands to tens of thousands. The conversation will stop focusing on potential and switch to legacy. At that moment, one question will eclipse all others. Did the WTA build this star? Or did she build herself? The answer feels obvious. Alexandra Eala is not just a product of the system. She is a once-in-a-generation force reshaping the system itself.